Today we're going to make this amazingly delicious low-carb cottage pie. This dish is so full of flavor regardless of if you're trying to eat a ketogenic diet or carbs are just your starch enemy. You won't miss them. In fact, I'm willing to bet you'll prefer my cauliflower and cheese version over the original mashed potato. So let's go ahead and get started here. First, we need to finely dice some vegetables. First, I'm going to peel this onion. And for a more even dice, even in a food processor, it helps to cut it into a couple more pieces. Now, into the food processor we go, along with 3 or 4 cloves of garlic, depending on your taste. Next, we have 1 large carrot. We just need to pop this end off. Now, let's just break it into a few pieces, and into the food processor we go. And finally, for our aromatic vegetables, we have 3 or 4 stalks of celery. We want to discard those ends, and then again, we'll just rip these into a couple pieces, and into the food processor we go. Now, if you don't have a food processor, that's no problem. You can just dice these up, and when you're cooking the meat filling, just cook it an extra 15 or 20 minutes or so. You'll be fine. But not only does the food processor save us a bunch of time, but we're able to get the vegetables small enough that you won't even see them in the final dish. Stealth vegetables, if you will. After pulsing our food processor 4 or 5 times, these should be about as small as we can get them. Let's just have a quick look here. Yep, that is about perfect. Okay, now off to our Dutch oven. We aren't going to start these in any oil or anything because there's going to be plenty of fat from our ground beef. I like 80-20 chuck for this, but you could certainly use a different cut turkey or even lamb and make this a shepherd's pie. To that, we want to add about 1 teaspoon of salt and fresh cracked black pepper to taste. Now we bring our heat up to high and we just want to cook this all together. And while that's cooking, do you know why we're calling this a cottage pie instead of a shepherd's pie? Well, that's because traditionally shepherd's pies are actually made with lamb and cottage pies made with beef. Anyway, once our filling here is cooked through, we want to add 1 more ingredient, and that is about 3 ounces of this tomato paste. That's about half of one of these small cans. This does a couple of important things. Not only does it add a ton of flavor and much needed acidity to the dish, but this is also going to act as the main thickener for our filling. So just mix that in as we continue to cook over medium-high. Once our tomato is fully incorporated, we're going to add 6 ounces of water. We just want to get that thoroughly incorporated, and then we can cover this and let it simmer for about 20 minutes. And while that's happily simmering away, we can push that onto a back burner and go ahead and get started on our topping, which is an all-time favorite of mine, cauliflower and cheese. To get started here, we just need to kind of pop out the root of this. And we're just going to steam this. So if you can fit the whole thing in your pot, great. If you need to break it up a little bit like I needed to do here, that's also fine. Once we can get it all in there, we just want to turn our heat up to high and add in about a cup or so of water. Once it gets steamy, just slap a lid on here, and we want to steam that on medium-low for about 10 minutes or so. And now with that happily steaming away on one of our back burners, let's work on the final component, our cheese sauce. Now, we could skip this and just top our cauliflower with cheese, but I really like to make the sauce. And to get started, we need 1 cup of milk, 1 teaspoon of mustard, 1 teaspoon of salt, and about half a teaspoon of MSG. And for those still scared of MSG, I have a support group for you. And now I'm going to add a little fresh pepper. Not everybody likes pepper in their cheese sauce, but I do. Now we just want to get that all whisked together as we bring this up to a simmer. Once it starts to bubble, we're going to add our thickener, which is 1 tablespoon of cornstarch in 1 tablespoon of water. Now, I know cornstarch isn't keto or low carb, but with the amount we're using here, it's going to add a total of 8 carbs to the entire dish. So if that's a trade-off you're willing to make, go ahead. Otherwise, feel free to use guar gum or some other thickener of your choice. Whatever we're using, once it thickens up like this, we want to go ahead and add our cheese. I'm adding a total of 4 ounces to the sauce here. Once our cheese goes in, it's going to melt and the sauce is going to be ready to use really quick. So try to have everything pretty much ready to go at this stage. Did I mention we were supposed to preheat our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit? Let's go ahead and do that. Once our sauce looks all melty and amazing, there's one final step. We do want to taste that for seasoning. Because trust me, there's nothing worse than putting together an amazing dish and having it come out tasting bland, and all it really needed was an extra half teaspoon of salt. But this is perfect, so let's set that aside and we'll just check on our cauliflower. We want this to be fork tender, and of course don't forget to drain off all that water before we add in our cheese sauce. And now we just get the cauliflower and cheese mixed together. Don't worry if the cauliflower gets all broken up, that's perfectly fine. Remember, this is replacing mashed potatoes in the original dish. I like to leave mine just a little bit chunky, but if you want to mash yours down even more, that's totally fine. Now we just want to pile up all that glorious cauliflower and cheese on top of our cottage pie filling. Spread that out as evenly as we can, and then we're going to top with the other 4 ounces of cheddar cheese. Now, this is normally where I would tell some sort of cheese pun, but you just wouldn't believe the ones I came up with. They were not very Gouda. Anyway, now we're off to a 350 degree Fahrenheit oven where we're going to bake this for about 45 minutes. Oh yeah, look at all that cheese. Once it's ready to come out, we want to be sure and set this on a rack to cool for at least 10 minutes. That'll let the cheese sauce thicken up a little bit and help prevent us burning ourselves. But that's it, our keto and low carb friendly cottage pie is ready to serve. I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Passion for Food. If you have, don't forget to give me a thumbs up below, subscribe, and hit that little bell so you don't miss our future recipes. And don't forget to check out one of our other great videos on the screen now. This has been Graham with A Passion for Food.